The Galactic Council chamber had never been silent. 1,000 species, 1,000 voices, endless debate, until every sound died at once. The hololithic display at the center of the chamber flickered, then stabilized. The enemy armada filled the projection, tens of thousands of warships, black and jagged, advancing with mathematical certainty. They had erased 7 civilizations in the last standard cycle alone. Entire star systems reduced to drifting ash. "This is the final defensive line," the speaker announced, voice steady. "Even if this system falls, the Council will endure." Then the sensors screamed. Not alarms, screams. Data streams shattered into impossible readings. Space itself distorted as something emerged between the enemy and the defended world. Ships. Hundreds of them. No warp signatures. No recognized hull designs. No transponder codes. The enemy armada fired first. And vanished. Not retreated. Not damaged. Vanished. Whole battle groups blinked out of existence as if reality itself had rejected them. Energy spikes beyond known physics rippled across the display. The enemy's flagship attempted to deploy its planet-killer weapon. And split apart in total silence. Council members rose from their seats in panic. Analysts shouted contradictory reports. Archivists tore through millennia of records, their expressions draining of color. "The fleet," one of them whispered, mandibles trembling, "is not registered under any known power." Another voice, shaking with terror, added the detail that froze the chamber. "Their ships match human construction patterns." The room erupted. "That's impossible. Humanity doesn't possess technology like this. They would have recorded it." The display shifted again. The unknown fleet held position, immaculate and untouched, as debris from the annihilated armada drifted like dust. Then a single, calm transmission appeared. No emblem. No identification. Just text. "Threat neutralized." The Galactic Council finally understood. Something had gone terribly, catastrophically wrong. The Galactic Council had convened for wars before. They had watched stars burn, civilizations beg, and empires fracture under the weight of their own ambition. War, to them, was a familiar equation, resources measured, fleets counted, outcomes predicted long before the first shot was fired. This time was no different. The circular chamber glowed with soft, diplomatic light as representatives from across the galaxy occupied their assigned tiers. Chitinous limbs clicked against crystal floors. Gas-filled bodies shimmered behind containment fields. Beings of energy hummed impatiently, already bored. At the center, the hololithic projection displayed the enemy armada. Vast. Precise. Inevitable. Thousands of warships advanced in flawless formation, each vessel built for one purpose only: extermination. Their path was marked with the ghosts of fallen powers, 7 civilizations erased in less than one standard cycle. No survivors. No negotiations. No mercy. Yet the chamber was calm. "The projected outcome remains unchanged," stated High Strategist Threx, its multifaceted eyes scanning probability streams. "Losses will be acceptable." A ripple of agreement spread through the tiers. "The outer defenses will fall, yes," another counselor added. "But the core worlds are secure. The Armada has never breached layered coalition shields." "And if they do?" asked a junior delegate, its voice betraying unease. Threx turned slowly, offended by the question. "Then another species will be remembered," it said flatly. This was the natural order of the galaxy. Strong civilizations rose. Weak ones fell. The Council did not exist to save everyone, only to ensure balance endured. The projection shifted, highlighting nearby systems mobilizing defensive fleets. Names scrolled past, each accompanied by casualty estimates and expected survival rates. One name appeared briefly before being minimized. Humanity. A counselor from the Volari Combine emitted a low clicking sound, amusement. "Why are the humans even listed?" it asked. Their fleets are outdated. Their technology inefficient. Their worlds emotionally driven. Several delegates signaled agreement. Statistically irrelevant, Threx confirmed. Human military doctrine favors adaptability over optimization. Admirable, but ineffective against an armada of this scale. Another added, they lack the industrial output for sustained war. At best, they delay the inevitable. The humans were known, yes, but not feared. They were a young species by galactic standards. Loud. Stubborn. Excessively sentimental about concepts like home and sacrifice. Their ships carried redundant systems, manual overrides, even physical crew members instead of full automation. Inefficient. Wasteful. Predictable. If the humans survive, someone remarked dryly, it will be because the enemy does not consider them worth destroying. Polite signals of humor passed through the chamber. The Speaker of the Council raised a limb, restoring order. Regardless, the Speaker said, the Armada will reach the Helier defensive line within 3 standard hours. All member states will observe and contribute according to treaty obligation. No one objected. Why would they? The Council had faced extinction-level threats before and endured. This enemy armada was powerful, yes, but power alone had never been enough to break the galaxy's oldest institution. As the session continued, analysts refined projections. Defense fleets were positioned. Evacuation protocols were filed and forgotten. Confidence filled the chamber like a shared illusion. None of them noticed the anomaly forming far beyond sensor range. None of them questioned the one assumption every model depended on: that everything capable of fighting this war was already known. And that nothing worth fearing remained unrecorded. Enjoyed the story so far? Like, share, and subscribe for more HFY stories where humanity reminds the galaxy why it survives. The transition from prediction to reality was almost ceremonial. 3 standard hours after the council adjourned, the chamber reconvened under emergency protocol. The diplomatic lighting dimmed, replaced by tactical displays and cascading data streams. Every tier now faced the central hololith, where the Helier defensive line burned into existence. Rows of coalition warships formed layered arcs around the star system, heavy cruisers, carrier formations, automated drone lattices. Shield grids overlapped in elegant geometries perfected over millennia of warfare. At the edge of the projection, the enemy armada emerged. They did not announce themselves. They never did. Space rippled as their vessels dropped from superluminal transit in perfect synchronization. No wasted motion. No hesitation. Their formation alone was a weapon, psychological pressure translated into geometry. Enemy arrival confirmed, an analyst reported. All projected vectors align with prior simulations. The council watched. The first exchange began exactly as predicted. Coalition artillery lanced outward, brilliant streams of energy striking the leading edge of the armada. Shields flared. Several enemy vessels were destroyed, acceptable losses, already accounted for in the models. The enemy returned fire. Entire defensive squadrons vanished in expanding spheres of light. Shield layers failed one by one, stress fractures racing through the Helier grid like cracks in ice. Still, the chamber remained composed. Attrition rate within tolerance, High Strategist Threx intoned. Phase 2 will commence in 74 cycles. Then a junior sensor officer froze. High Strategist, it said slowly, I'm detecting something else. Threx did not turn. Background interference. Ignore it. No, the officer insisted, mandibles quivering. This isn't interference. There's a mass shadow forming inside the engagement zone. That drew attention. The hololith zoomed in, layers of data peeling back. At first, there was nothing, just empty space between colliding fleets. Then reality folded. Not in the violent way of warp entry, nor the familiar signatures of jump drives. Space compressed, as if an unseen hand had pressed inward, forcing existence to make room. And ships appeared. Hundreds of them. They materialized in absolute silence, arranged in a formation so precise it bordered on unnatural. Their hulls were angular and dark, surfaces absorbing light rather than reflecting it. No engine flares. No energy buildup. No identification. Unknown fleet detected, an analyst reported. Attempting classification. Transponder scan, the speaker asked. Negative. No codes detected. Species identification? A pause. None match our database. The enemy armada reacted instantly. Their formation shifted, weapons reorienting toward the new arrival. Targeting solutions were calculated in fractions of a cycle. They fired. The hololith filled with energy as thousands of enemy weapons converged on the unknown fleet. Space itself seemed to burn under the assault. When the light cleared, the unknown ships were still there. Untouched. No shield signatures. No visible defensive systems. Then they moved. There was no dramatic charge. No overwhelming volley. Each unknown ship released a single pulse, barely visible, a distortion more than an attack. Enemy vessels began to disappear. Not explode. Not break apart. They simply ceased to exist, leaving behind empty coordinates and confused targeting data. What weapon is that? Someone demanded. Analysts scrambled. We're not detecting energy transfer. No mass displacement. It's as if the ships are being removed. Entire enemy battlegroups vanished in sequence. Command ships. Carriers. Dreadnoughts that had survived 100 engagements. The enemy flagship attempted to withdraw. It never completed the maneuver. One pulse struck it, and the largest vessel in the Armada folded inward, collapsing into a point before winking out of existence. Silence fell over the chamber. The battle feed showed drifting debris, coalition wreckage, enemy fragments, but the unknown fleet remained pristine, unmoving, as if the engagement had never required effort. A senior archivist spoke, voice hollow. I am cross-referencing all known fleets. Council, independent, mercenary, classified. It stopped. There is no record of this force. Another analyst added, barely audible, their whole architecture resembles human design principles. The chamber erupted into chaos. That's not possible. Humans don't field fleets like that. They would have reported it. The hololith remained unforgivingly calm. The enemy armada, once the galaxy's greatest threat, had been reduced to scattered absence. And the unknown fleet held position, silent and waiting. For the first time in recorded council history, no one present could predict what would happen next. For 13 full cycles, no one in the Galactic Council chamber spoke. The hololithic display continued to string data, numbers, vectors, probability trees, but none of it made sense anymore. Entire branches of predictive models collapsed into red error glyphs, their assumptions rendered obsolete by a reality no one had prepared for. The enemy armada was still trying to fight. What remained of it, at least. Scattered groups of warships broke formation, abandoning the flawless geometry that had once defined their advance. Some attempted emergency jumps. Others fired blindly, saturating space with weapons fire in a desperate attempt to force something to respond. The unknown fleet did not chase them. It didn't need to. Each ship adjusted position by fractions of a degree, maintaining a formation so stable it appeared anchored to space itself. Then the pulses resumed, measured, deliberate, and devastating. One pulse. A cluster of enemy destroyers vanished. Another. A carrier group ceased to exist, its escorting vessels removed in the same instant, as if they had never been there at all. Enemy losses now exceed 90%, an analyst reported, voice unsteady. Coalition losses have stopped increasing. That was the most disturbing part. The unknown fleet was not defending. It was not intercepting fire. It was not reacting. It was executing. A weapons specialist leaned forward, frantically adjusting sensor filters. I can't isolate the mechanism. There's no heat bloom, no radiation spike, no exotic particle trail. Whatever they're using doesn't interact with our instruments. Then how do the ships disappear? Demanded the speaker. The specialist swallowed. They're not being destroyed. They're being removed from causality. The chamber filled with a low, collective sound, fear expressed through 1,000 alien anatomies. On the display, the enemy flagship, one of the last remaining capital vessels, activated its planet-killer array. Massive structures unfolded along its hull, energy building to catastrophic levels. The unknown fleet reacted for the first time. A single ship moved forward. It crossed the distance between fleets without acceleration, without visible propulsion. One moment it was in formation, then it was there, positioned directly in front of the flagship's firing arc. The pulse that followed was different. Space warped inward, collapsing like a breath drawn too sharply. The flagship didn't vanish immediately. Instead, its hull began to compress, layers folding into themselves as internal volumes ceased to exist. For a fraction of a cycle, the Council saw inside it, reactors imploding, command crews frozen mid-action. Then it was gone. The planet-killer array never fired. A junior delegate whispered, it could have destroyed Helier. Yes, Threx replied quietly, all arrogance gone. And it chose not to. The realization settled like a weight. This was not a desperate defense. This was not a last-minute salvation. This was control. The final enemy ships attempted surrender protocols, ancient codes meant to halt hostilities under galactic law. Their signals flooded the spectrum, pleading for recognition. The unknown fleet ignored them. One by one, the remaining vessels vanished until the hololith showed only wreckage and empty space where an armada had once existed. Enemy presence, 0, an analyst said, voiced barely above a whisper. No cheers followed. The unknown fleet held position for several cycles longer. Then, with flawless coordination, they adjusted orientation, every ship aligning toward the Council's protected worlds. Not aggressively. Observationally. As if confirming something. Multiple counselors recoiled instinctively. They're scanning us, someone said. No, corrected the sensor officer. They already know everything. This looks more like verification. Coalition fleets transmitted cautious recognition signals. None were acknowledged. No demands were made. No explanation offered. Finally, the unknown fleet powered down its weapons, if that was what they were, and drifted into a silent holding pattern. Only then did the speaker find their voice. This engagement is concluded, they said, though it felt inadequate. Begin full archival review. Identify this fleet. Determine command authority. The archivists had already started. And they were failing. Every record contradicted the next. Every database returned partial matches and impossible timestamps. The designs were familiar, uncomfortably so, but the technological gap was centuries ahead of anything humanity officially possessed. Threx stared at the display, its multifaceted eyes reflecting the image of the silent fleet. High strategist, the speaker asked, your assessment? Threx hesitated, something it had not done in its entire career. We are no longer the senior authority in this conflict, it said at last. We are observers. As the chamber absorbed that truth, a single, unmarked data packet appeared on the edge of the hololith. Incoming transmission. Source, unknown fleet. Status, encrypted. The galaxy held its breath. The emergency session reconvened under a level of security that had not been used since the Council's founding. The chamber sealed itself off from external networks. Independent archives were pulled into isolated data wells. Entire layers of galactic history, classified, sealed, and forbidden, were unlocked by unanimous consent. And still, the answers did not come. The hololithic display now showed the unknown fleet in static orbit beyond the Helier system. Hundreds of ships. Perfect spacing. No emissions beyond minimal power signatures. Waiting. They have not moved in 40 cycles, reported the chief sensor officer. No communications. No propulsion. No detectable logistics. That's impossible, muttered a counselor. Any fleet that size should be bleeding energy. Threx said nothing. Its attention was fixed on the archival streams flooding the chamber. Cross-reference complete, announced Senior Archivist Thale, its voice hollow. The fleet is not registered under any sovereign power. Not council-aligned, not independent, not rogue. The speaker leaned forward. And mercenary registries? Cleared. No matches. Pre-council records? Lost empires? Thale hesitated. We are accessing them now. That pause carried more weight than any alarm. Ancient archives unfolded, data preserved from before the Council standardized history. Records of collapsed alliances, erased species, wars fought so long ago that even their names had been lost. The unknown fleet remained unmatched. Until a subroutine flagged a partial correlation. Thale stiffened. I am detecting architectural parallels. Hull segmentation. Internal redundancy patterns. Command node distribution. Threx turned. Clarify. They are consistent with human shipbuilding philosophy. The chamber erupted. That's absurd. Humans don't even use centralized AI command. They still allow manual control systems. Yes, Thale replied quietly. Which is why the match is troubling. The archivist expanded the display, overlaying schematics of known human warships against projections of the unknown fleet. The similarities were subtle but undeniable: layered compartments, fail-safe redundancies, distributed power networks. Designs meant to survive catastrophic failure. Designs meant to keep fighting when logic said they should be dead. These ships are human-built, Thale continued, but they do not match any active human registry. Then they're prototypes, someone argued. Classified projects. No, Thale said. The timestamps are wrong. The room fell silent. Thale adjusted the display again, revealing faded registry tags buried deep within the data, corrupted, incomplete, almost erased. According to Council records, the archivist said slowly, these hull patterns correspond to a human fleet declared lost 312 standard years ago. Confusion rippled through the chamber. Lost, the speaker repeated. Destroyed? Presumed destroyed, Thale corrected. During an early expansion conflict beyond human-controlled space. No wreckage was ever recovered. The incident was closed as a total loss. Threx's mandibles tightened. And you are certain? As certain as the data allows, Thale replied. The humans themselves submitted the loss reports. A cold realization spread. They reported it, a counselor murmured. But they never recovered it. Another delegate leaned forward. Why would they still be operational after 3 centuries? That, Thale said, is the more disturbing inconsistency. Power readings suggested reactors operating far beyond their expected service lifetimes. Hull integrity showed no degradation. Command synchronization was flawless. These ships were not drifting, Thale continued. They were maintained. Upgraded. Waiting. For what? The speaker asked. No one answered. A new layer of data surfaced, restricted Council intelligence, flagged and buried under obsolete encryption. Threx read it in silence. Then, slowly, it spoke. 3 centuries ago, humanity petitioned the Council for permission to activate an autonomous survival doctrine, Threx said. The request was denied. Deemed unnecessary. What doctrine? Someone asked. Threx hesitated again. They called it a last stand protocol. The unknown fleet shifted. Just slightly. Enough for the sensors to notice. And for the Council to understand that whatever humanity had lost all those years ago had never truly been gone. The name alone sent ripples through the chamber. Last stand protocol. It was not a term found in any modern strategic lexicon. No living counselor could recall its activation, and yet the archival systems reacted to it immediately, locks disengaging, warnings flashing, ancient data waking from enforced dormancy. This doctrine was classified beyond council authority, reported Thale, its voice tense. Access requires cross-species consensus. The speaker did not hesitate. Granted. The lights dimmed as a new projection unfolded, not a battle map, but a historical record. Humanity's early expansion era appeared on the hololith. Crude star charts. Inconsistent borders. Fleets that looked laughably primitive compared to modern standards. And yet, they kept moving forward. Humans expanded faster than any species in recorded history, Threx said, narrating the data with clinical detachment. Not because they were strong, but because they assumed they would lose. That statement drew confused reactions. They planned for failure, Threx continued. Their military doctrine evolved around one principle: survival after defeat. The record shifted, showing internal human strategic debates, arguments over redundancy, decentralization, and something the translators struggled with: hope. Humans did not trust single fleets, Thale added. They did not trust central command. They did not even trust their own governments. The images changed. Shipyards hidden within asteroid belts. Construction projects deliberately omitted from public registries. Fleets assembled under designations that were never meant to return. These assets were never listed as active forces, Thale explained. They were logged as losses the moment construction began. A murmur of disbelief swept the chamber. They recorded their own fleets as destroyed, a counselor asked. Yes, Thale replied. Because in human military philosophy, a weapon that must be acknowledged is already vulnerable. The doctrine expanded on screen. Redundancy above efficiency. Autonomy above obedience. Survival above recognition. These fleets were built to operate without resupply, Threx said. Without political oversight. Without the possibility of recall. The council absorbed that in silence. They were meant to wait, Thale continued. To observe. To learn. To intervene only if humanity itself faced extinction. A junior delegate recoiled. You're saying they were abandoned? No, Threx corrected. They were trusted. The data revealed crew manifests, volunteers only. Humans who had signed onto missions with no return coordinates, no public acknowledgement, and no promise that history would remember them. Their final orders were simple. If humanity survives, remain unseen. If humanity is threatened beyond recovery, act. The projection shifted to show the present battle overlaid against the doctrine's activation criteria. Every threshold had been crossed. The enemy Armada qualified as an extinction-level threat, Thale said. Not just to the Council, but to humanity's future expansion. A bitter realization spread through the chamber. Humans didn't activate this fleet to save us, the speaker said. No, Threx agreed. They activated it to ensure they would still exist tomorrow. The unknown fleet's behavior suddenly made sense. No communications. No diplomacy. No concern for galactic law. They were not a navy. They were a contingency. A final image appeared, an old human phrase preserved in the doctrine's margins, untranslated until now. The system rendered it at last. We do not record our knives. The chamber fell silent. Because for the first time, the Galactic Council understood a fundamental truth about humanity. They did not announce their strength. They did not seek approval. And they did not forget how to survive. Outside the chamber, the unrecorded fleet waited, patient, eternal, and very much awake. The encrypted signal did not announce itself with alarms. It simply appeared. A new data stream overlaid the hololithic display, slipping past Council security layers as if they were ceremonial rather than functional. No breach warnings triggered. No countermeasures activated. The system accepted the transmission without resistance. That shouldn't be possible, the chief security analyst whispered. The speakers steadied themselves. Decrypt. Multiple teams engaged simultaneously. Quantum keys. Legacy algorithms. Brute force cascades. The encryption dissolved on the first attempt. Not because it was weak, but because it was compatible. The hololith shifted. Text appeared against a neutral black background. No insignia. No species marker. No rank identifiers. Just words. Threat neutralized. The chamber exhaled as one. That's it, a counselor demanded. That's the message? Before anyone could respond, more text followed, precise, unemotional, and terrifying in its restraint. This sector is no longer contested. Civilian harm projections have returned to baseline. Observation phase complete. Threx leaned forward. Observation phase? The answer arrived as if the question had been anticipated. Council activity has been noted. A ripple of unease spread through the tiers. They were watching us, someone said. Not just now, Thale replied quietly. For a very long time. The speaker composed themselves. Identify yourselves. State Command Authority. The response was immediate. Command Authority, autonomous. That single word carried more weight than any threat display. Autonomous fleets are prohibited under Council law, the speaker said carefully. All military forces must. Council jurisdiction acknowledged. The interruption was polite. Council authority declined. Several delegates recoiled. Others stared in stunned silence. You can't just, someone began. Correction, the text continued. We can. We did. Then, for the first time, a designation appeared. Not a name. A status. Asset classification, humanity, last stand protocol. Thale's appendages trembled. They identify as the protocol. The implication was chilling. These ships don't answer to human governments, Threx said. They answer to an idea. The speaker chose their next words with extreme care. If humanity controls this force, we request direct human confirmation. There was a pause. Long enough to feel deliberate. Human civilian governance was not consulted, the transmission replied. Human military command was not consulted. The chamber froze. Then who authorized you? The speaker asked. The answer came without hesitation. We did. A secondary line appeared beneath it, smaller, almost archival. Authorization timestamp, 312 standard years ago. The Council finally understood. This was not a response fleet. This was not a reinforcement. This was a promise kept by people long dead. A final message followed, softer in tone but no less absolute. Hostile forces capable of triggering extinction protocols have been eliminated. Further intervention is unnecessary. The speaker swallowed. And if another threat emerges? The response took longer this time. When it came, it was not text. It was a simple status indicator. Active. Then another line appeared beneath it. We are still here. The transmission ended. The hololith returned to its tactical display, silent, unchanged. Outside, the unrecorded fleet remained in position. Watching. Waiting. And for the first time since the Council's creation, the galaxy knew a terrifying certainty. Humanity did not need to be present. For its will to be enforced. The chamber was in chaos, but the chaos was silent. No alarms. No shouts. Just stunned disbelief. Analysts combed through every database again and again, trying, and failing, to find a logical explanation. Every record contradicted another. Every calculation suggested impossibility. And then the archival stream highlighted the truth. These ships, Thale began carefully, are part of a contingency humans call the Last Stand Protocol. The fleet was constructed during the early expansion conflicts, 3 centuries ago. Every vessel was considered lost to history immediately upon completion. Several delegates blinked. Lost? One asked. Destroyed? No, Thale said. Purposefully unrecorded. Designed to exist outside of official records, beyond political oversight, and beyond recall. The speaker's limbs trembled slightly. They waited? They were meant to wait, Threx confirmed. To observe. To exist silently until humanity itself faced a threat beyond their survival thresholds. Slowly, the Council absorbed that reality. The enemy Armada, one of the most feared forces in the galaxy, had been annihilated not by chance, but by ships that had been prepared for centuries, hidden from history, and fully autonomous. They did not need orders. They did not consult governments. They did not register themselves, Thale said. This fleet exists as a promise. A human guarantee that survival is mandatory, and anything threatening it will be removed. A junior analyst whispered, almost to themselves, they were volunteers, weren't they? Yes, Thale said. Crew members signed up knowing they would never return, that no one would ever acknowledge them. Every system in the fleet is self-sufficient, every protocol is autonomous, and every weapon is optimized to neutralize extinction-level threats. The speaker leaned back, processing. So, what we just witnessed was the result of human planning, not human reaction. Threx's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Precisely. Humans prepared long before we even perceived the need. Every calculation, every contingency, every lost asset, it was all part of a centuries-old plan. And yet, Thale continued, the humans never interfered with our systems before now. They did not announce themselves. They waited until the threat exceeded all thresholds. The chamber turned back to the hololith. Hundreds of ships hovered silently in space, untouched, immaculate, a perfect formation of precise control. No heat signatures beyond the minimum, no detectable emissions beyond the sensor's ability to record. They are not just ships, Threx said, voice low. They are doctrine made manifest. Humanity's will, encoded in metal and energy, executing exactly as intended. The Council finally understood the terrifying simplicity of what they faced. Humanity had not forgotten the Armada that once might have destroyed them. Humanity had not only survived, it had planned to survive. And in doing so, they had created a force the galaxy was wholly unprepared for. A pause settled over the chamber. No one spoke. Then the speaker asked quietly, and if we encounter another threat in the future? Thale's voice was calm, almost clinical. Then it will be handled. By them. The realization hit every delegate at once. The unrecorded fleet did not answer to governments. Did not answer to treaties. Did not answer to councils. It answered only to the survival of humanity. And in that moment, the Galactic Council understood the true meaning of the phrase humans had left in their doctrine's margins centuries ago. We do not record our knives. Every simulation, every projection, every assumption about human weakness was wrong. Humanity had not only survived, they had ensured the galaxy would never forget them again, whether anyone liked it or not. The unknown fleet waited, silent, immaculate, eternal. And for the first time in 3,000 standard cycles, the Council realized. Humanity did not need to exist nearby to win. They had already won. The chamber was quieter than it had ever been. For millennia, the Galactic Council had defined the galaxy's hierarchy. Empires rose and fell, fleets clashed, worlds burned, but the Council remained the ultimate arbiter of power. Until now. The unknown fleet remained beyond Helier, stationary, silent, almost patient. Every tactical sensor and projection indicated they were fully capable of further engagement, but they had chosen restraint. Counselors exchanged glances, each struggling to reconcile centuries of confidence with the new reality. High Strategist, the speaker asked, voice tight, what do we now know? Threx's mandibles clicked slowly. We have underestimated humanity. Not just their technology, not just their fleets, but their philosophy. Their doctrine is centuries old, autonomous, and unmatched in foresight. They do not require orders. They do not need oversight. They will act when necessary, and only when necessary. Thale interjected, pointing to the archival projections. Every calculation we relied on assumed human weakness, predictability, and compliance with galactic norms. That assumption is obsolete. Humanity operates outside all our models. A junior delegate whispered, barely audible, they don't even answer to governments anymore. Correct, Thale said. They answer only to themselves. To survival. To the preservation of their species. The speaker exhaled slowly. Then the Armada we just witnessed, destroyed not by chance, not by tactics, but by a fleet we never recorded, commanded by a species we underestimated for centuries. The Council absorbed the weight of that realization. They had faced countless threats, yet none had been so completely outside the realm of expectation. The unrecorded fleet was not a reactive force, it was a living embodiment of human will, waiting centuries for the precise moment to act. Outside the chamber, sensors recorded the silent fleet. Every system operational. Every weapon calibrated. Every ship immaculate. Not aggressive. Not communicative. Waiting. Observing. Judging. And the Council understood what that meant. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted without a single human warship ever leaving known space. They are not our allies, Threx said quietly. They are not our enemies. They are inevitable. A collective chill passed through the chamber. For the first time, the Council realized that humanity's strength was not in numbers, not in bureaucracy, not even in technology, but in principle, patience, and foresight. The speaker concluded, voice shaking with humility, the galaxy has learned a final truth today: humanity does not need permission to survive. They do not need recognition to act. And we have nothing to bargain with but observation. The hololith dimmed, leaving only the fleet's silent, eternal form hovering beyond Helier. For centuries, the Council had defined history. Now, they knew they were merely observers. And somewhere, deep in the darkness of unrecorded space, the humans waited, unseen, unstoppable, unforgotten. The galaxy had finally understood, humanity's reach had always been longer than anyone imagined. And it would never be ignored again.